Have you ever felt like if you truly feel your losses, your pain, your disappointment, your suffering, that it would just swallow you up and you would be gone for good? You know, when we're afraid to feel our really hard realities, it's often evidence that there isn't a strong inner leader present to guide us through that experience of reality. And we don't trust ourselves to feel our really difficult feelings to feel and not abandon ourselves to poor choices, to just a place of disintegration, to checking out, all the different ways that we learn to cope without a source of love on the inside. And our strong inner leader is not the source of love, but is the vessel of love that brings love to every part of us. Parts of us that are suffering, parts of us that are stuck, holding on to losses that need to be validated and healed. And the new covenant calls this strong inner leader for every born again believer, our new creation identity, our spirit man that is perfectly connected in unity, in oneness to the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. And so in our spirit man, we have access to a love that can hold and contain all of our losses. And the very essence of the gospel is that Jesus became your suffering. He actually became intimately acquainted with your grief. And until your losses are seen and felt and validated, and the cross is ultimate validation for the smallest of losses in whatever scale you're using to the biggest of losses, because Jesus came for it all. And one of the beautiful things about the gospel is all life begins with death. This new creation identity, to truly be born again of the Spirit, we first have to go into the grave, that I have been crucified with Christ, is what Paul said. And at the beginning of this year, I just kind of felt like I was, feeling around a dark room for a light switch. Have you ever had all that experience? Am I up? Am I down? Am I back? Am I around? And I really felt in my spirit like the Lord was letting me know, you're both in a womb and a grave. And both wombs and graves are dark. But it doesn't mean nothing is happening, that He actually does His best work in the dark. And in the kingdom, the grave actually is the womb when we're anticipating the resurrected life of Jesus, redeeming in a way that only He can redeem. And it's not a redemption in the natural that focuses on specific outcomes. It's a redemption of what died in you, what got disintegrated in you, that needs to be brought back to a place of wholeness. Because I love Gabor Mate's definition of trauma, that trauma are really hard experiences on the earth that are the essence of why Jesus came. That if you have no brokenness, if you have no sickness, Jesus said, then you don't need a doctor. That He actually came for the broken. He came for the wounded. He came for the parts of you that have been stuck in a suffering world. And that trauma was not what happened to you as an event, but it's actually what happened on the inside of you that distorted your view of God, your view of yourself, your view of others, your view of the world around you, your dignity, your sense of worth and identity, your capacity to receive love and release love. And that's everything Jesus came to redeem. And when we're looking at the internal leadership perspective, and if you look at previous videos, we've been going through the internal leadership process of tending to soil on the inside of us. And Proverbs just calls this, watch over your heart, watch over your innermost being with all diligence, for from it flows every river of life. Everything you touch is going to be influenced by what is happening in your inner reality. And so this is the highest priority of leadership in the kingdom, is watching over your innermost being. Tending to the soil of your innermost being is the only way to cultivate life that produces something new and beautiful in areas where you've felt defeated or stuck, or there's residue of the experiences of navigating life in a world that is poor in love. When we're looking at that framework, its soil is see, own, integrate, and lead. And in this video, we're just kind of breaking down together what integrate means. And integrate is coming from the word integration, and it encompasses integrity. And integrity is an alignment. And in the kingdom, that alignment is with how God sees you, how God thinks about you, how God feels about you, is in alignment with how you think about you, how you feel about you. How you're moving about the earth is in alignment with how the Father feels about you on the inside. Integrity is like a river. And I love John Townsend's definition of integration, because he talks about the two kind of opposites of integration are a lot of rigidity, that you're living life by a lot of rigid rules, religion. It's only black and white. It's only yes or no. It's only this way or that way. And it's very harsh and judgmental and rigid. And then the other side of that, we often have all navigated both of these sides of integration. The other side is just super loosey-goosey. Everything goes. Nothing really matters. There's no consequences to choices inside of grace. Ouch. It's sloppy, and there's no banks to the river. In integration, there are banks to the river, but the river can flow freely on the inside of you. And Jesus said, new covenant living is basically out of your innermost being, out of your inner reality that you are 100% responsible to tend to, is going to flow rivers of living water. And this is a visual aid of the Holy Spirit flowing out of you with the life and the fullness of the gospel, of the good news of what Jesus has made available because of his sacrifice. So when we're feeling afraid of experiencing really hard realities and giving ourselves space and time to feel those realities, those really hard experiences are disintegrated. They become islands on the inside of us that we've shoved down through avoidance, through numbing, through acting out in behaviors that are harmful to us or others, or acting in by being really harsh and critical and mean on the inside. And when those griefs and those losses, those disappointments, the pain isn't tended to on purpose, we begin to lower the level of our expectation about the nature of God in our lives. We begin to level the expectation about the goodness of God in our lives, because our grief hasn't had a place to rest inside of his goodness, inside of his attention, inside of him becoming one with those losses for us and on the inside of us so that we would never be alone in them. Developing a strong inner leader, living, walking by the Spirit, does not mean you just feel happy all the time. Yeah, sorry if that's bad news inside of the good news. But true freedom is I can feel every human emotion and know how to return to love. So I can feel loss and love. I can feel sad and loved. I can feel super disappointed and loved. The essence of resilience is we actually have to validate that this is super hard in order to need resilience. And so if we are diminishing our experiences, if we're diminishing our reality, there is no opportunity for that inner man of the Spirit, our strong inner leader, to practice resilience, to practice not disintegrating from myself, from others, from the Godhead when things get super hard. And so character and integrity, that alignment with who I truly am, is only tested when I'm being pushed against, where there's a need for resilience, and where we sever our connection to who we are to Him is where we have room to practice our inner leadership. We have room to practice staying present with really hard human realities while having a source of love that is always available, not that fixes everything, but that is with us. And the only reason we have the capacity for integration is because we now have access as born again children of God, a source in the Father who is the only source of always available, perfect love. What is different now is that we have access to a source. And so our suffering doesn't have to be handled alone, because before we had this source, it would have absolutely annihilated us to feel our losses at their fullest extent. So those feelings of survival were accurate before we had this attachment to love, perfect love, that we could always turn into no matter where we are. And so much of the wiring we're having to interrupt is on the earth, love is very much conditional. On the earth, it's very much given in measure. And we learned ways of getting love. Okay, if I perform really well, I get love. If I'm really happy, I get love. If I'm really fun to be with, I get love. If I'm really funny, or if I'm really sad, if I'm really hurting, if I'm not doing well, I get love. If I'm sick, I get love. We all have very unique stories that Jesus is completely attuned to and aware of. Your wiring that taught you only these parts of me get love. But wholeness, which is another way of saying integration, is when every part of you is welcomed inside the home of love that is the Father on the inside of you. That no part of you is isolated and alone and left out of love. And so this is the work of discipleship in the kingdom, of inner discipleship, of bringing every part of you home to the Father that is on the inside of you and rewiring what you learned about love, what you learned about parts of you that are only worth rejection and abandonment and isolation, parts of you that are unwanted. And the absolutely outrageous good news of the gospel is that all of Jesus was gifted to all of you. So that means the most wounded parts of you today, before they're perfectly healed, get all of Jesus. The parts of you that are holding a lot of sadness or sorrow or grief, get all of Jesus today. That he actually held none of himself back from all of you, the whole of you. And so often we think of wholeness as a destination we're going to arrive at. But wholeness in the kingdom is actually found in our capacity to receive the whole of Jesus into every part of who we are. Because true becoming does not find its hope in you and who you're going to become in the future. True hope is rooted in who he already is on the inside of you. He's already the fullness of love, no matter where you're at in your growth process. He's already the fullness of hope, no matter where you are in your circumstances in life. And so much of life in the Spirit, life in the kingdom, is learning how to step back into your inner man of the Spirit and live from the reality of his world and his presence more than we're living in the external reality. And that does not diminish the external reality. That actually heals the external reality. That actually holds our external reality. Because when we're trying to live from the outside in, we will constantly be grasping for love like it's a dangling carrot. Because everything in the outer world is unstable. It's unpredictable. It's inconsistent. Everything in the kingdom, which is righteousness, peace, and joy inside the Holy Spirit. So the kingdom is actually illuminating and reverberating with the life inside the nature of God, the presence of God. Everything in that kingdom is 100% stable. It's 100% predictable and consistent, not because he doesn't shock us with what he does, but because of how consistent his nature is, his character is. He does not change. He is entirely reliable in his love, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. So it does not matter where you are, how you're showing up, you do not get more or less of his love. Every part of you gets the fullness of his love, not because of what you do or don't do, because of who you are or who you're not, but because of who he is. And this is healthy leadership at the essence. He is our highest model. And, as a parent, as our father, he is our highest model of health because none of his nature is changing based on who he's serving, based on who he's giving to. So, this aspect of inner leadership requiring that we do the work of integration means that we're actually confronting what we're afraid to confront. And very often we need the support of others. We need the containment of others. We need the presence of others that we can go further and deeper together than we ever could get to on our own. Because what actually gives us courage is the felt sense of another. And so I just want to encourage you today, where are you afraid to go in your story? The beginning point is seeing that and then owning that. And once you see and own it, you can do the work of integration, of bringing that part of you that holds really hard parts of your story to the cross, to the place where Jesus has always longed to be present for you and with you. And the essence of courage in the kingdom is derived all of our heroes throughout the Bible. The overwhelming message God would give those people when he was calling them to do outrageous things that their inner reality was not in alignment with, was not in integrity with. What brought alignment was not God telling them everything they are, but telling them, I am with you. Everything that he is with you. And that's what gives us the courage to go into the inner places in our soul where the lights are turned off, where it's a grave and a womb. And he becomes for us our inner light, our inner home, our inner safety, that as long as you're here, David said, even if I go down to hell, your presence even there is with me. It is the absolute source of integration. It's the source of bringing every part of us home to love, that the God who is love is with us. He is with you.